Is it happening? Are we live?
No, it's going.
Oh, okay.
What is happening? Hi, everyone. We are just figuring out how to go live on Instagram because we are grandmas. Is this definitely working? If you're watching this and it's working, if you could comment, that would be absolutely amazing. Meanwhile, I'm going to stare sadly at the screen trying to figure out how to go live on Instagram. Can anyone comment? Someone comment, please. Okay, I don't know how to do this.
It was working a second ago.
I know.
It's so frustrating. Sorry.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. So sorry. Please bear with us.
Yeah. We see you. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear us? Commented on.
Oh, wait. Is this it?
Yes, live. Press that. Good. Okay.
Oh, thank God.
Cool. Sorry, that was complicated. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We think we are now live on Instagram and on Facebook. If Facebook Live, if you could possibly comment on either platform. Oh no, we've been confirmed on Facebook that is actually happening. If you can possibly, someone can just text me to tell me that this is actually working on Instagram. That'd be awesome. Or comment, might be easier. Someone said, we're telling your followers that you started a video. Someone joined. Great, it's happening.
Instagram.
Oh, that's just Instagram. Cool. We should probably turn this way so we can actually see the comments as they come.
Yeah.
That's not gonna work. Sorry, everyone. We did this once before, and the tech was a lot better. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for taking time out of your day. We're gonna be here for half an hour and do some talking and hopefully have some interesting questions and learn some stuff about identity and being an immigrant in this country.
So we did a talk for the King's Head or an Insta Live. Clearly, I'm really good with this 21st century newfangled tech stuff. We spoke on Instagram through the King's Head earlier in lockdown number 1, and spoke about our company and sort of our ethos. So we're just going to go through that really quickly right now, and then we're just going to speak for this session kind of more specifically about language and immigrant identities. And this is very much an offering as part of an open conversation, as opposed to any kind of diatribe or prescriptive, prescription. So quickly about Global Origins. We're Global Origins. I'm Jude.
I'm Aneesha. And we run Global Origins, which is a company that we say is for international and multicultural artists, which basically means any artist of any discipline who doesn't place their entire identity inside of the UK. So the two big things that we do is we create networks. So we put artists in touch with each other, and we program work at various stages of development.
The idea kind of being to be as global and genreless as possible. Something that two things we found. One was when we met at drama school, we both felt quite alienated as international students, and didn't feel there was a lot of infrastructure for community, and sort of decided to get together and attempt to, make that space. The other thing that we noticed was that a lot of opportunities, especially for emerging artists, are quite prescriptive. So it's 15-minute scratch on the theme of, neoliberalism in English, no musicals, or so very specific formal and thematic asks, and often unpaid,
that we felt were very predicated on British understanding of what traditional theater is, and we wanted to dismantle that.
So kind of part of what we've done from there is try to create space to elevate artists to tell the stories that they want to tell in the forms that they want to tell them. So yeah, that's us. We also do a lot of teaching at drama schools on decolonizing the canon, kind of writing ethically with identity and ethical representation. If you're a drama school, please hire us. And yeah, I guess that's kind of us as a company.
And I think so. What we're going to talk about today is kind of simultaneously part of our professional practice and also something very personal that we've spent a lot of time understanding. Obviously, because of the company that we run, figuring out how we place ourselves inside of the discourse about kind of immigration and diasporic identities and a cultural exchange became very, very important to us. And it really feels like it's changed a great deal from when we started the company, and all of it has had to do with us reckoning with our own identity and our own kind of visible and invisible privileges and what that means for what our complicity is and then what our responsibility is as artists and also as human people.
Nice.
Cool.
So we should say that the format here is, 30 minutes on Instagram/Facebook Live. So it's not the best for kind of open dialogue, alas, but we would really encourage you and ask you to ask questions and comment. And we might not get to it right at the moment that you send it because my ability to hold on to a train of thought these days is just embarrassing. But we will get to it. And we would love to view this as kind of an offer towards future conversation as opposed to, I think I already said
a decision.
Yeah, cool. So,
so I think to start, one of the big things that we've been talking about is and we've been talking about for years is the idea of kind of how identity functions inside of the immigrant community and what that means for us. And one of the things that we kind of earlier this year, I think, solidified for ourselves is we were trying to figure out how to kind of place ourselves in a lot of the political terminology that exists in binaries. So ideas like the global north and global south or the east and west, which is the worst one probably, and kind of came to the conclusion that the way that we while we don't favor binaries, our preferred binary is colonizing and colonized as a way to kind of consider privilege in an international context. So I think that that's what we're going to be talking about. That's the framework that we're going to be using a lot through this whole thing. Is kind of is privilege coming from colonizing and oppression and claiming knowledge and land and power and identity that is marginalized and then being kind of subject to that. Does that make sense? Sorry,
I think that
was a complicated sentence.
Made sense to me.
Awesome, thank you.
So I think that what we're gonna start with, she says 9 minutes in, is sorry that keeps doing that. I think I'm just gonna have to keep tapping.
It's got nothing to do with the live. It's just the phone, I think.
Yeah. But I should just keep tapping it when it happens, right? Cool. So something we had this planned for ages, but something that happened recently was that I started a conversation on Twitter over the weekend that got a lot of kind of feedback and got some conversation going. So I don't know, it feels like it would be strange not to mention that has played into us choosing to speak about this today. I guess to give a quick summary for those of you who have the luck and joy of not being on Twitter. Basically, I said that I didn't feel comfortable necessarily with, I wish I could just read it. I'm so much less eloquent when I'm not typing. I basically said that I'm not super comfortable with claiming the label of migrant for myself, given my privilege as an American and as a white person, and given the experience that I've had in terms of my immigration experience overall, so I guess I'm just going to kind of quickly talk about myself, not because I'm a narcissist, but just kind of to give some context, because basically what I said was, can we have a more open conversation? I would love to look at more kind of specific and nuanced vocabulary, because I think that maybe there are hierarchies within the immigration experience. This is all within the context of kind of the UK arts theater industry. to clarify, this is not like in a broader context. This is very much within the that specific, not bubble, but within that niche. What was I going to say?
You're going to talk about your experience as an immigrant.
Great. So basically, I feel like I cannot fully claim that word, and I said that it felt to me like it would be an appropriation of an experience. We got lots of really, really interesting conversations started as a result of that about kind of solidarity and different things, which we're going to touch on. But yeah, I basically just wanted to flag that that's part of where this is coming from. I am an American citizen. I am here right now on an they've gotten rid of the visa that we're on, but or they renamed it again, entrepreneurship visa, right? Is that it? So we were sponsored at the end of finishing drama school to start this company, and I'm applying for the global talent visa right now. Here's hoping that works out. I don't have indefinite leave to remain. I've applied for 6 visas so far. I was deported once accidentally. I'm smiling because it sucked. And through all of that, because of my social capital and privilege, both financially and passport wise, and just in terms of a lot of things, I am still here working in this country, despite like literally having to go home, get a lawyer, and then come back. I am also Jewish, and I come from LA, and then went to university in New York, and then moved here. So I spent my entire life very much in in Jewish majority spaces, both culturally and also just kind of like, in terms of demographics. Then I moved here, where Jews are a very small percent of the population. I always forget if it's like 0.3 or I think it's 0.3%. And I suddenly kind of experienced anti-Semitism in a lived way that I had only ever heard about before. So for me, I would say that as an American and as a white American, who was able to pay to go to grad school and this and that, I would say that and speaks English as a first language, I would say that I don't really experience xenophobia per se, but I do experience anti-Semitism. And so for me, part of the concern with migrant is that actually it is not my migrant identity that in any way causes any sense of oppression. It's a different part of my identity. So basically that got me thinking about the fact that like, oh, maybe this word doesn't speak to particular parts of and nuances of experiences.
Something that we've been trying to figure out for a long time, and not just us, obviously, I mean the kind of artistic community at large, and particularly in this country, is how we can create kind of safe terminology to discuss marginalized identity, whether that's religious minorities or sexual LGBTQI plus identities inside of a space that kind of requires you to name the identity in order to be able to then begin to politicize it. And how kind of a lot of catch-all terms often take away a lot of specificity and a lot of lived experience from the discourse. So something that we're very interested in doing is talking about, how can we create a kind of framework that doesn't just contextualize immigration and immigrant theater makers in the context of a British gaze, and particularly a kind of British state gaze alone, but also recognizes that there are internal kind of hierarchies that function inside of those identities. So how are we kind of talking about immigration inside of the immigrant community?
I guess the one other thing I should add for context that I forgot is that even though I have an American passport, I tried very hard to get EU citizenship in a variety of countries where my family's from, and was not eligible because everyone left too soon, which means between the 1880s and 1905, Poland, Belarus, and Germany. And the reason that they left is religious persecution and murder, and that's what crystallized into the Holocaust. So there's been an interesting experience for me in that as an American Jew, I have a lot of privilege, but in terms of kind of trying to return to, land that maybe I have claim to, I've been excluded, and my attempts at citizenship have been blocked. So that's just something that like is another kind of weird little nuance to throw in there that I guess is just interesting / speaks to the complexity of all of this.
I think increasingly there is an idea that there is a lot of merit to the idea that we need to recognize overarching kind of colonial histories of countries,
Oh no, sorry.
complicity, kind of a global complicity in oppression, and how we calibrate our identities to include all of those things. So something that we've been talking about a lot. We started kind of with the very simple assumption that that Emma is a white presenting person and I'm a person of color, and therefore our relative privilege is clear. And as we've kind of individually and then together unpacked that a lot more, Emma has spoken about kind of her experience of, you know, the American passport. And on the other hand, I spent a lot of time thinking about kind of why, what it is that makes me more privileged than a very small, because of gatekeeping reasons, percentage of the diaspora that exists here, and the answer is caste. I don't know, I can't explain caste in an Instagram live.
Wait, sorry, what does that say? If you are stuck or would like to learn more, okay, I think that might be a
I don't know what that means. If you don't know what caste is, it's a kind of ancient, centuries old, extremely oppressive system that has now kind of come under the purview, was codified under Hinduism, and is essentially says that the way that you are, the caste that you're born into is the one, is what decides how you get treated by society. And in India, in America, and here in diasporas across the world, and also in the increasingly right-wing state in India, it leads to oppression, emotional distress, lack of opportunity, loss of legal recourse, physical violence, and death. So it's not a small game here. And I'm an upper caste person, and my privilege in that context is immeasurable. Just for some additional context.
Sorry, I'm just gonna. It was trying to help as you said you were trying in Poland. Oh,
I see.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
That's very kind. No, I'm maybe DM us. Sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. I speak Polish and was offering to help. Oh,
That's
thank
really
you so much.
lovely.
Sorry, we were reading. The phone was upside down, so we were like half reading. That would be great. I would love to get in touch with you.
So kind of considering what my privilege was, you know, as a kind of model minority, and what that means is as an incredibly privileged person, despite not being a white person in presentation, meant that actually my responsibility as an immigrant in the UK was not towards foregrounding my experience, or kind of using my own lived experience as a framework, because my experience is extremely rarefied, but instead thinking about what are the gaps that exist in the conversation about immigration inside of the diaspora and in first generation immigrants in the UK, and how can we kind of create language, and obviously, you know, there are organizations that are doing this already. There are organizations like Dalit Solidarity Network that works here, is working very hard for this. So, you know, I'm not claiming that this is my conversation to have, but as a privileged member of, I suppose now, the diaspora, it became very important that we separate my experience from the experience of people who my ancestors have historically oppressed. It was very easy for me to come here because of privilege I held in India, and those privileges continue to work in similar ways here, even though they're less visible. So it becomes very important to not club identities together, and instead talk about how we can maybe create a more multiplicity inside of it, so that we can be better allies to each other inside of a movement or an immigrant space, rather than painting everything with the same kind of brush. So I think that's the offer that we are very interested in making, which is how can we, much like with the term BAME, or like you were talking about queerness being a reclaimed term, how can we kind of evolve that language to match our understanding of immigration?
Yeah, I think that something we were chatting about right before this was the fact that language is constantly shifting and it's a moving target. And on the one hand, that's discouraging because just as we get it right, maybe it's then wrong again. But that's also really exciting. if we look at kind of the discourse that's happening in the UK and in the Americas, shifting away from BAME, which, is a heinous term, moving away from that, in America, moving towards BIPOC. If we look at the, words that were being used in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they were different words, and they were words that are not okay. But it's a linguistic continuum that moves kind of forwards, and sometimes moves in multiple directions. I was speaking to a gay man in his 60s who really objected to my use of the word queer. And most of my friends who are millennials, we use the word queer as kind of like a reclaimed act of radical love. And he got really upset about it. And that's really interesting. And that's something that is completely valid. And there's no way in which his experience of that word is wrong. Just as our experience of that word is not wrong. Basically, I guess I'm just trying to say that things keep moving, and actually the more specificity we get, the better it is for everyone. Since Britain is a very classist society anyway, how can we explain casteism to contemporary society? Do you want to take that?
I think that if we think about, that's a cool question, and thank you. I think there is a real correlation between wealth, influence, and power, and in the UK, and caste in the Indian diaspora. If you sorry, it takes a long time to talk about this stuff, which is why I offered some of it. But if you consider, we were talking about Preeti Patel earlier today. Hi, Preeti. And about how there is an increasing discourse about how someone whose parents are first-generation immigrants could subscribe to conservative and anti-immigration policies. But the truth is that when, to really wind back, when decolonizing happened in India, and, the British left, or whatever that means, it wasn't in favor of an egalitarian redistribution of power inside Indian society, and rather a handover from one colonial power to another colonial power, which is that of upper caste Brahmins, which means that since the history of kind of codified Hindu thought, there has always been a strong and very unhealthy and strict hierarchy based on which Hindu society, and actually, it's dissipated into other minority religions in India because of kind of colonial power inside of the caste system. It has always been used to kind of maintain privileges. So if you're an upper caste person in India, you get the privilege of personal and familial wealth. You get the privilege of being able to move through spaces freely without having to worry about discrimination. You get recourse to you get a recourse to legal aid more easily. You're treated better by the system. You are more easily able to be educated, and for all those reasons, it's easier for you to emigrate into other countries. Yeah. When in 2018, Theresa May's government, hi Theresa, tried to tried to pass an anti-caste discrimination bill on the floor of Parliament, and by tried I mean they didn't, but it was definitely on the floor, and it was met with such violent and aggressive protest from Hindu right-wing groups in the UK, British, like the Hindu diaspora, that they decided that caste was not definable enough in a legal context for that to be applied. What that means is that if you consider that in the context of the way that current politics functions, it isn't just caste isn't divorced, but instead is yet another door of privilege through which you can access upper classness and larger opportunities and more power inside of the society, even if the society isn't entirely Hindu.
Something I realized that I absolutely should have flagged and had in my notes and then forgot to say, so I'm very sorry, is that my entire family is Ashkenazi, which means European, and that means that I have a lot of privilege as a Jewish person, especially this year. No, always. But this year, there's been a lot of dialogue about kind of Ashkenazi privilege, and sorry, it's my own privilege that means that I'm talking about it as just existing this year. It's absolutely not a new conversation at all. but I, as an Ashkenazi Jew, there's Yiddish that is kind of part of the collective culture. The narratives of my family are the narratives that are known largely in pop culture. When Jewish people are portrayed in TV shows and in movies, it's mostly Jews who come from a similar background to that of my ancestors. And there's a massive erasure of of Jews of color who are often, have their experience and their, kind of Jewishness questioned. So I absolutely, again, come from a privilege there that, again, it's just another way of speaking to the fact that within any of these hierarchies, or within any of these marginalized identities, there are hierarchies of privilege. And, maybe I'm here in one hierarchy and then here in another and here in another, but actually
that's what intersectionality
that's what intersectionality is trying to acknowledge all of that and then find a way to support everyone.
Yeah.
And use your own privilege, flag your own privilege, and use it to, for good.
Yeah. I mean, this thought process has influenced a lot of choices that we've made. For example, we moved from the word in our kind of company log line. We said that we were for international and diasporic artists, and instead changed that to international and multicultural, which we felt was a more inclusive term, and not just in the sense of, I think we thought that it encompassed more a more diverse range of identities, including so just the idea that if you don't consider the UK to be the only place that you consider home, or the only place that you consider culturally formative for you, then it means that you have a diverse range of kind of experiences or stories or forms of oppression or forms of privilege that are worth unpacking. Yeah. I think this question about like Britain is deeply uncomfortable with colonialism and how do we explain this to an everyday Brit is a super interesting question. I have an opinion on this, which is why do we need to do that? Genuinely, I think that inside of like immigrant communities and inside of diasporas, it feels a lot more important to make that space a lot healthier and consider how different kinds of colonialism that aren't just straightforward, and I'm sorry for using that word, I'm just oversimplifying it, straightforward British colonialism that started and stopped is how we, what the perception is to consider how post-colonial identities and other colonizing identities have been formed and forged. Like America is a super interesting example of that, in that it's a horrible example. But it feels a lot more important, I think, definitely to me, and we've spoken about this quite a lot, to create to be able to conduct that conversation and create that framework inside of immigrant and kind of marginalized communities more strongly than it is to translate or recalibrate that conversation for a British gaze.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's not about, on the one hand, I completely understand and the argument of, well, we need to speak to the farthest right and make them understand, and we need to reclaim the words that are being used derogatorily by them. At the same time, why do we move towards the worst? Why can't we move like in an effort towards the left and in towards what is better, to be more open? Why can't we use more language rather than less language? Like, it shouldn't be like, going to the lowest common denominator. I think that's a math metaphor. I'm not sure. Is that right? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I think that's a thing.
That's a thing.
It shouldn't be, because the right calls us this, or because this is the, we should explain this to the right so they understand. Why do they matter? They're never going to like us. They're never going to care. So it's a question of, trying to move as openly as possible towards the people who do care and who do have a capacity and an interest and an experience that is relevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I
it's
think
also
kind of,
it's 1:30.
Yeah, okay, there's 2 more minutes. I don't know, I feel like it just flies by.
No, I know. I was gonna
the internet, being on the internet, it just flies by.
I was gonna say, should we ask people questions? Sorry, say what you're saying first.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna agree with you. If you have any kind of questions that we haven't addressed or anything, or you have anything that you would like us to know or be informed about, please
Comment?
speak now.
Or DM us.
Yeah.
We're on Twitter at
Global Origins.
Yeah. And our and our email is globaloriginstheater@gmail.com. Spelled theater the way it's spelled in the UK.
Because
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what we wanted to say, which was just kind of start to open up this conversation about how we can create a little bit more linguistic diversity, because in a lot of ways as artists, and that's it, it's our job, at least that's how we feel, to not just kind of conduct the politics, but also to continuously reconsider and interrogate those politics, and kind of continue to see how we can make spaces more and more inclusive.
Yeah.
And there obviously, this is a conversation that's definitely happening. We're not saying in any way that this is just our conversation to have. So we would love to hear from people watching, and just anyone else who you think that might have something that would be helpful for us to learn.
So if you have a question or a comment, please by all means have at us. I'm going to charge the phone because it's going to die. Can you get the thing? I'm not seeing any questions right now. So sorry for my embarrassing technological ineptitude. I mean, should we kind of leave that there then?
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to send, sorry for you having to watch me type from a very close.
What are you sending, and to whom?
Info.
Oh, nice. I'll do it on Facebook. So I'm just gonna send through I can spell the name of our company, Global Origins Theater at. I'm just putting our info through. Oh, that's not working. For some reason, when I try to give our Twitter name, it whatever. That's fine. Please get in touch. We would love to hear from you, and we don't think we have the answers here at all. We just think that it's a conversation that maybe isn't fully happening, and that we would love to have happen.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Someone commented. Oh, King's Head Theater. Oh, it was us. Okay, great. We're going to call this a day. Have a lovely Thursday, and thanks for joining.